The house stood tall behind iron gates, clean and quiet, like it was always holding its breath. From the outside, everything looked perfect. Flags were kept straight, the garden trimmed, the driveway spotless. Inside lived a man known by many for his rank and discipline. He was a general who had spent most of his life leading others through chaos. On the battlefield, he was fearless. At home, he felt lost. He was raising twin girls alone. They were the same age, looked almost identical, and shared a silence that filled every room. Their mother had passed away suddenly 2 years earlier. Since that day, the house had changed. Laughter disappeared. Music stopped playing. Even sunlight felt weaker inside those walls. The twins were not troublemakers in the usual sense. They did not shout or break things. They did not run around or cause mess. Instead, they withdrew. They stopped speaking unless forced. They avoided eye contact. They refused comfort. Their silence made adults uncomfortable, unsure of what to say or do at first. The general believed structure would fix everything. He set strict schedules. Meals were timed. Bedtimes were firm. He hired the best nannies money could find, people with experience, certificates, and confidence. The first nanny arrived hopeful. She lasted 2 weeks. She said the girls ignored her completely. They wouldn't answer questions. They wouldn't follow instructions. She felt invisible. The second nanny stayed a little longer, thinking patience would work. After a month, she left, saying the emotional weight was too heavy. The third nanny cried on her last day. One by one, 12 nannies came and went. Some tried being strict. Others tried being playful. A few tried being extra gentle. Nothing worked. The girls treated each new person the same way, with quiet resistance. They would sit together, whispering only to each other, turning their backs to anyone who tried to help. Word spread quickly among agencies. This was a high-paying job, but no one wanted it anymore. People whispered that the twins were too difficult. Others said the house felt cold. Some believed the girls were broken beyond repair. The general heard these comments, but said nothing. He kept his posture straight, his face calm, just like he did during briefings. Inside, he felt guilt growing heavier every day. He wondered if he had failed them. He wondered if his absence during missions had cost them their sense of safety. Late at night, after the house fell silent, he would sit alone in the living room. He stared at family photos on the wall. Pictures of the twins smiling as toddlers. Pictures of their mother holding them, her face full of warmth. He often found himself standing there longer than planned, lost in memory. The twins' rooms were neat, almost too neat. Their beds were always made. Toys were lined up, but never touched. Books sat unread. It was like time had frozen for them. Teachers at school raised concerns, too. The girls performed well in tests, but refused to participate. They did not play with others. They avoided group activities. Counselors suggested therapy, but the twins refused to speak there as well. At home, meals were quiet. Plates clinked softly. The girls ate only what they needed, never asking for more. When spoken to, they nodded or shook their heads. Sometimes they didn't respond at all. The general tried everything he knew. He read books. He listened to experts. He followed advice. Still, nothing changed. One evening, after the 12th nanny quit, he received a call from the agency. The voice on the other end was careful, almost nervous. They said they had one last person who had applied. Not a professional nanny. Not someone with years of childcare training. The general almost said no. The agency explained that this man was a military veteran, a single father. He had raised his own child after losing his spouse. He had no fancy resume, no big words, just experience and a calm presence. The general hesitated. He had trusted professionals before and been disappointed every time. Still, something made him pause. Maybe it was the man's background. Maybe it was desperation. He agreed to meet him. The next afternoon, the man arrived at the gate on time. He wore simple clothes. Nothing expensive. Nothing sloppy. His posture was relaxed, not stiff. His eyes looked tired but steady, like someone who had seen hardship and survived. They spoke in the study. The general asked questions about discipline, routine, and boundaries. The man answered honestly. He said children don't always need more rules. Sometimes they need to feel safe first. That answer stayed in the room longer than the conversation. The general allowed him a short trial period. 1 week. No promises. When the man first met the twins, he didn't introduce himself loudly. He didn't kneel or try to charm them. He simply acknowledged them and stepped back. The girls noticed that immediately. They watched him from the corner of the room. They expected him to demand attention, like the others. He didn't. He spent the first day quietly observing. He noticed how the girls stayed close to each other, how one always checked the other's reaction before moving, how they flinched slightly when voices got loud, even during normal conversation. That night, he didn't report problems. He didn't complain. When the general asked how things went, the man said, "They're paying attention. They just don't show it yet." That was new. The household staff was sure it wouldn't last. They had seen this before. Optimism always faded. They whispered among themselves, counting days. The twins, meanwhile, began noticing small things. The man never rushed them. He didn't force them to eat faster. He didn't stand over them while they worked. He spoke softly and left space for silence. On the third day, something unexpected happened. During breakfast, one of the girls dropped her spoon. It clattered loudly against the floor. Both twins froze. Their shoulders tensed. They waited for a reaction. The man calmly picked up the spoon, washed it, and placed it back on the table without a word. No sigh. No lecture. The girls exchanged a look. For the first time in a long while, something inside them shifted. It was small, almost invisible. But it mattered. The general watched from a distance, unaware that this quiet moment would become the first crack in the wall that had surrounded his daughters for 2 long years. Outside, the house still looked the same, clean, silent, controlled. But inside, change had quietly begun. The veteran returned the next morning with a quiet confidence. He did not carry toys, books, or complicated schedules. His only tools were patience, observation, and understanding. The general watched from a distance, still unsure if this man could succeed where 12 others had failed. The twins had grown accustomed to strangers, entering their world and leaving without a trace. They had no reason to believe he would be different. When he entered the living room, they barely lifted their eyes. They continued their small, synchronized movements, whispering only to each other. The veteran did not rush them. He simply sat at a small distance, letting them decide whether to approach. The first hour was quiet. The twins ate their breakfast slowly, glancing occasionally at the new man. He offered nothing except a calm presence. No words forced, no questions pushed. He simply observed. He noticed the subtle things no one else had. The way one girl tapped her fingers when nervous. The way the other traced patterns on her plate. The slight hesitation before responding. After a while, he began talking softly. Not questions or commands, but stories. Stories about small things, ordinary moments, memories from his own life. He did not demand responses. He simply shared pieces of his world. Sometimes he spoke of simple adventures he had with his own child. Walks in the park, building small projects, reading together at night. The girls listened, uncertain at first, but intrigued. The rhythm of his voice was steady, gentle, like a tide washing softly over rocks. The general, observing from his office window, felt a strange mixture of hope and doubt. Could such a quiet approach truly reach these guarded children? Could understanding alone replace years of grief and silence? During the next few days, small signs began to appear. The girls started looking at him without fear. They did not speak, but their eyes followed his movements. Sometimes, when he left the room, they glanced at each other and smiled faintly, a tiny rebellion against the long-held silence. The staff whispered nervously to one another. They did not understand how or why he stayed calm when the girls ignored him. They were used to urgency, punishment, pleading. This man offered none of it. His quiet persistence confused them, but they could not deny it had an effect. The tension in the house, previously almost unbearable, began to soften, just slightly. One afternoon, during a routine art activity, the twins began drawing shapes that seemed chaotic to the casual eye. The veteran sat nearby, observing without comment. He noticed small details. One girl drew her family, carefully adding each member, while the other drew scenes of a park, trees bending as if in the wind. He quietly placed his own paper next to them and began drawing too. He did not attempt to show them his work, but simply let his presence blend into theirs. The girls noticed this new behavior. It was different from previous nannies, who tried to control every movement. His calm, shared activity sparked something unexpected. One of the twins tentatively handed him a crayon, not speaking, but the gesture was significant. He accepted it without comment, continued drawing quietly. That simple act marked the first interaction without fear. Evenings were another challenge. Bedtime had always been a struggle. The twins resisted sleep, tossing and turning, crying silently. The veteran did not force them into bed. Instead, he brought small lanterns and read quietly in the corner of the room. The gentle light illuminated the room without intruding. For the first time, the twins lay down without protest, listening to the rhythm of his voice rather than the ticking of a clock. The general watched these moments with growing astonishment. He had never seen anyone handle these girls like this. The veteran's method was unlike anything else attempted. It was not rules, not authority, not charm, not discipline. It was understanding, patience, and unwavering calm. And it was working, slowly but clearly. Staff members began noticing changes, too. Meals were less tense, mornings less frantic. The house, once silent except for footsteps, now had small moments of interaction. The twins began to accept small tasks and responded to simple questions, often with nods or single words. Every tiny sign was a victory, though it felt small to outsiders. By the end of the first week, a significant breakthrough happened. During lunch, one of the twins asked a question. It was soft, almost hesitant, but it was clear. "Can you tell me another story?" The veteran froze briefly, then smiled gently. He nodded and began a story about a quiet day in a small town, about neighbors helping one another, about small acts of kindness. The girl listened, eyes wide, and the other twin inched closer, joining silently. For the first time in years, words were exchanged in that room without fear or pressure. The general, observing through the window, felt a mix of relief and awe. He had spent years ensuring control, planning, strategizing. Yet here was a man without rank or authority, winning trust in a way he never could. Over the next few days, the veteran continued his quiet approach. He learned their rhythms, their fears, and the small things that made them happy. He noticed that one of the twins responded positively to music and movement, while the other found comfort in drawing and storytelling. He tailored his attention without being forced, without judgment. It was not perfect. There were setbacks. Days when the girls refused to eat or speak. Days when they retreated into silence. The veteran did not react with frustration. He simply waited, present and patient. His understanding that trust could not be rushed was evident in every small gesture. The general, watching from a distance, began to ask questions. He wanted to understand the approach. He asked staff to describe the changes, to document the small improvements. It was unlike anything he had expected. This was not just a job being done. This was healing in motion. The twins, slowly, began testing him too. They whispered among themselves, trying to see if he would react with anger or disappointment. He never did. They spoke in small phrases, then sentences, then stories. Each day they shared a little more. The house, once heavy with silence, began to feel lighter, warmer, safer. One evening, the general saw a moment that would stay with him forever. The twins were sitting together on the couch, laughing softly. The veteran was nearby, reading quietly. The girl's laughter was hesitant at first, then freer. It was a sound the general had not heard in years. A sound of life returning to a home that had been still for too long. For the first time, the general realized that discipline, wealth, or credentials were not enough. What was needed was presence, patience, and understanding. And perhaps only someone who had faced his own hardships could reach them in this way. The first week ended, and the veteran had completed his trial. The general made a decision that surprised even him. He offered the veteran a permanent position. It was no longer about testing. It was about trust. It was about hope. It was about a family that could begin to heal Dot, and in that house, behind iron gates, quiet courage began to change everything. The veteran settled into his new routine with the twins. Every day was a slow journey, full of small victories and tiny setbacks. He had learned early that patience was more powerful than any instruction, and understanding more effective than any discipline. The girls were beginning to open in ways no one else had ever seen. The one who loved drawing would sometimes hand him a sketch, asking without words for his opinion. The other, who had a love for movement, would practice small exercises in front of him, seeking acknowledgement rather than correction. The veteran never criticized. He observed, guided gently, and celebrated each small step. Evenings became a time of quiet connection. The veteran would prepare simple meals, inviting the girls to help. At first, they barely touched the ingredients, but slowly they began to stir, chop, or pour. He never forced them. He simply made the act of cooking a shared activity, something they could control at their own pace. Laughter started to appear, hesitant at first, then more freely. The twins began sharing small stories about school, about a friend, or about something funny that happened to them. And the veteran would listen carefully, never interrupting or judging Dot one afternoon. The veteran noticed something that had gone unnoticed for months. While the girls had begun responding in small ways, there were deeper scars they carried. One of the twins had developed a habit of flinching at sudden noises, covering her ears tightly. The other would retreat to her room when stressed, hiding behind the door. The veteran understood that these were echoes of fear and loss, not misbehavior. He approached carefully, never forcing conversation. He sat nearby, reading aloud softly, letting the presence of another human being ease the tension. He realized that trust was not about words, but about feeling safe. Every time the twins flinched or retreated, he didn't scold or correct. He simply gave them time, space, and consistency. Slowly, they learned that no one would force them, no one would yell or push, and that mistakes were not punished. The general observed these changes with growing admiration. He had spent years relying on orders, routines, and discipline to shape behavior. Yet here was a man without rank, without authority, creating trust and connection in a way the general had never seen. He began to see his daughters differently, not as children who needed control, but as individuals with their own fears and needs. School reports began reflecting the changes as well. The twins started answering questions in class. They raised their hands and participated in small discussions. Teachers noticed the improvement and were curious about the cause. The veteran didn't boast. He only focused on continuing the work at home, understanding that change at school would follow from the changes they experienced in the safety of their home. During afternoons, the veteran introduced small projects that allowed the girls to express themselves. They built models, painted pictures, and even experimented with simple science activities. Each project was approached with curiosity rather than pressure. The girls began to see that trying something new did not mean failure or criticism. The veteran guided them with questions rather than answers, allowing them to explore their own ideas. The twins began showing small acts of kindness toward each other and toward the veteran. One of them would leave small notes or drawings on his desk. The other would prepare a simple snack for him during their cooking activities. These gestures were subtle but powerful. They indicated trust, understanding, and a growing sense of family that had been missing for years. The veteran also noticed moments of grief that would surface unexpectedly. Sometimes one of the twins would look at a photo of their mother and cry silently. He would not intervene immediately. He would sit nearby, offering comfort through presence. Occasionally, he would share a gentle story of loss from his own life, showing them that sadness could exist alongside hope. The girls began to understand that their feelings were valid, and that expressing them was not a sign of weakness. Staff, members who had grown used to the chaos and tension of the household, were amazed by the transformation. The once tense mornings were now calmer. The girls' routines were still strict, but they were embraced rather than imposed. Even the general began adjusting his own behavior, taking cues from the veteran. He learned to listen, to pause, and to allow space for his daughter's emotions rather than trying to control them. One particularly memorable day, the twins were working on a small garden project in the backyard. They planted flowers together, carefully measuring spaces and choosing colors. The veteran guided them with soft encouragement, praising effort rather than result. By the end of the afternoon, the twins were laughing and talking, sharing stories about the colors they chose and the shapes they made in the soil. The general, watching from a distance, felt a deep sense of relief and pride. The house felt alive again. As weeks turned into months, the veteran began introducing lessons about responsibility and empathy. He would ask the girls to care for small pets, manage small chores, and consider the feelings of others in their actions. These lessons were not lectures, but gentle guidance woven into daily life. The twins began showing initiative, helping with tasks without being asked, and expressing concern for one another's feelings. These behaviors marked a profound shift from their earlier withdrawal. Despite all the progress, challenges still arose. There were days when the girls refused to eat, sleep, or speak. The veteran never reacted with frustration. He remained calm, consistent, and understanding. His presence alone became a source of comfort, a reminder that they could face difficult emotions without fear of judgment. Each setback became an opportunity to reinforce trust rather than a reason for punishment. The general noticed that the bond between the veteran and the twins was unlike any other relationship he had seen in his household. The veteran was not just a caregiver. He was a bridge between their pain and their ability to trust. The general began to reflect on his own approach, realizing that his focus on discipline and order had not addressed the deeper needs of his daughters. One evening, the twins surprised everyone. During a quiet moment, one of them approached the veteran and asked, in a soft, hesitant voice, if he would stay with them forever. The other twin nodded, holding his hand gently. The veteran's response was simple, calm, and honest. He would. That moment marked a turning point, a clear acknowledgement of trust, love, and connection. The household felt different after that day. The twins were more expressive, more engaged, and more willing to take small risks. The general saw their smiles more often, their laughter echoing through rooms that had long been silent. Staff members who had once doubted the veteran's approach were now convinced that understanding and patience were transforming the lives of the children. The veteran continued to build on this foundation. He introduced reading time, storytelling, and small adventures within the safe boundaries of home. He allowed the twins to make choices, face consequences in a controlled environment, and celebrate successes. Each day brought new challenges, but the progress was undeniable. The general realized that this journey was not just about the twins. It was about healing an entire family, about creating a home where trust, love, and understanding replaced fear, silence, and grief. The veteran's presence had become essential, not just for the twins, but for the household as a whole. Months passed, and the twins' personalities blossomed. They laughed more freely, shared their thoughts openly, and engaged with the world with curiosity and confidence. The veteran's approach, rooted in patience and empathy, had succeeded where authority, discipline, and professional training had failed. He had shown that trust, once earned, could transform lives in ways that rules never could dot by the end of this part of their journey. The general understood a profound truth. Healing takes time, and love often speaks louder than authority. The veteran had not only connected with the twins, but he had redefined what family could mean in a home once dominated by silence. The girls, once withdrawn and guarded, were now beginning to thrive. Each small step a testament to the power of patience, understanding, and unwavering presence as the weeks passed. The twins' progress continued to grow in ways no one had thought possible. The house, once quiet and tense, now felt alive with small signs of life. Laughter, soft conversation, and gentle arguments began to fill the rooms. Each day was still a mix of challenges and victories, but the veteran approached each with calm determination and unwavering patience. He had begun introducing small lessons about life beyond the home. Nature walks, visits to local libraries, and small excursions to nearby parks became opportunities for the girls to experience the world outside their home in a safe and controlled way. He encouraged curiosity, asking questions rather than giving instructions, allowing them to make choices and explore. The twins were hesitant at first, clinging to each other, but gradually they started noticing small details, the way sunlight fell on leaves, the sound of birds, or the feel of grass under their feet. Each moment became a gentle teaching opportunity, showing them beauty, patience, and attention to detail. At home, the veteran continued to observe and guide quietly. He noticed patterns in their behavior. One twin often withdrew when faced with new situations, while the other reacted with anxiety to sudden changes. He adjusted his approach accordingly, offering extra support without drawing attention. For the first time, the girls began to anticipate comfort rather than fear, rejection, or punishment. Trust had grown into a bond that was visible in their body language, their glances, and the way they now included him in their games and activities. The general watched from a distance, noticing the transformation. He had never imagined that a single man, without authority or status in the household, could achieve what 12 trained nannies could not. The twins were learning to express themselves, navigate emotions, and experience joy. And it was all happening without force, without pressure, without the traditional methods he had always relied upon. One afternoon, the veteran set up a small project in the living room. He placed materials for building miniature models on the table, small wooden blocks, glue, and paints. The girls were hesitant at first, unsure of what to do, but he offered gentle guidance and encouragement. Slowly, they began constructing small buildings, decorating them with colors, and discussing what each structure represented. The veteran asked questions, prompting creativity and allowing them to lead. They laughed at mistakes, praised each other, and celebrated the small victories that came from collaboration. During these activities, the twins began sharing more of their thoughts and feelings. They described imaginary adventures, recounted school events, and even whispered secrets to him that they had never told anyone else. The veteran listened patiently, offering empathy and support without judgment. Through these exchanges, the girls began to see that their voices mattered, that they could be heard and understood. Evenings were a time for reflection and calm. The veteran maintained a routine of soft lighting, quiet reading, and gentle conversation. Sometimes the girls would fall asleep while he read, comforted by his presence. Other nights, they would discuss the events of the day, sharing both joys and worries. The veteran never pressured them to speak, but allowed them to express themselves in their own time and way. This approach taught them that emotions could be shared safely, without fear of punishment or disappointment. The general began to notice the subtle changes in his daughter's behavior. Their school reports showed improvement not just academically, but socially. Teachers commented on their increased participation, their willingness to collaborate, and their growing confidence. The girls were beginning to engage with peers, something that had been nearly impossible before. The veterans' influence extended beyond the walls of the home, helping them navigate the world in ways that no one else had managed. One day, a small crisis tested the trust they had built. The girls had been invited to a school event, an activity that involved many children and unfamiliar surroundings. Anxiety immediately gripped them. The veteran remained calm, explaining each step of the process and reassuring them that he would be there the entire time. He let them ask questions, express fears, and even refuse certain activities if they felt uncomfortable. With his support, the twins gradually participated, discovering that new experiences were not threats but opportunities. By the end of the event, they had laughed, played, and formed new friendships. A milestone that had once seemed impossible. At home, the veteran continued his gentle guidance. He taught the twins practical skills, cooking, cleaning, managing small responsibilities without demanding perfection. He encouraged mistakes as learning opportunities, praised effort over results, and emphasized empathy and kindness toward each other. Through these lessons, the girls developed a sense of competence, independence, and confidence that had been missing for years. The twins also began to explore their emotions more openly. They shared memories of their mother, expressing grief, love, and longing. The veteran provided a safe space for these feelings, helping them process their loss without judgment. He shared stories of his own experiences, allowing them to see that sadness and resilience could coexist. This emotional growth was a crucial step in their journey, showing that trust and empathy could heal wounds that no authority or discipline ever could. Staff members in the household were amazed at the transformation. The once tense atmosphere had shifted to one of cooperation, laughter, and understanding. Even the general found himself adjusting his own behavior, learning to communicate with patience and empathy rather than commands and expectations. The veteran's presence had become a stabilizing force, teaching everyone in the home the power of quiet guidance and genuine care. Despite the progress, challenges remained. The twins had moments of fear, frustration, and regression. There were nights when one would cry quietly, clinging to the veteran, or mornings when neither wanted to get out of bed. He met each challenge with the same calm patience, offering presence and understanding rather than frustration or force. Slowly, the twins learned that it was safe to experience and express their emotions, and that setbacks did not erase progress. As the weeks continued, the veteran noticed a remarkable shift in the girls' relationship with each other. They had always been close, but now they were learning to support one another independently, sharing ideas, resolving conflicts, and celebrating each other's successes. Their bond grew stronger, nurtured by the security and understanding they had found in the veteran's care. One evening, the twins approached him with a small surprise. They had prepared a simple meal, carefully planning and executing it together. They presented it proudly, smiling and giggling, seeking his approval and sharing their joy. The veteran accepted their gesture with warmth, praising their effort and creativity. This small act symbolized the depth of trust and connection that had developed over months of patient guidance and quiet presence. The general observed this moment from a distance, realizing that the veteran had accomplished what he could not. The twins were no longer withdrawn, fearful, or silent. They were expressive, engaged, and thriving. The household had transformed from a place of tension and uncertainty into a home filled with trust, empathy, and love. The veteran's approach had proven that understanding, patience, and presence were more powerful than authority, discipline, or credentials. By honoring the twins' emotions, respecting their pace, and providing consistent care, he had created an environment where healing and growth could flourish. The girls were learning to navigate the world with confidence, to express themselves openly, and to embrace life with curiosity and joy. As the days passed, the veteran continued to guide them gently, reinforcing lessons of empathy, resilience, and self-confidence. He encouraged creativity, exploration, and problem-solving, allowing the twins to discover their own strengths and abilities. Each small victory, each moment of trust, reinforced the bond between them and demonstrated the transformative power of patience and understanding. The general, reflecting on the journey, understood a profound truth. The home's transformation was not due to rules or authority, but to the quiet, steady presence of someone who genuinely cared, who listened without judgment, and who allowed the twins to heal at their own pace. The veteran had not only reached the girls' hearts, but had reshaped the entire household, showing that empathy and understanding could accomplish what force never could. And in that home, once silent and tense, laughter, conversation, and love began to flourish, proving that the impossible could be achieved with patience, care, and unwavering presence. Time moved quietly in the house, but change was evident everywhere. The twins, once silent and withdrawn, had grown into children who could express themselves, laugh freely, and navigate their emotions with guidance. Each day brought new milestones, and the veteran continued to be the calm center around which the household revolved. One morning, the veteran noticed a small but meaningful change. The twins were preparing breakfast on their own, following routines they had once resisted. They moved with confidence, occasionally asking questions or sharing small jokes. It was a simple moment, but it reflected the months of growth and trust that had developed. The veteran smiled quietly, understanding that these small routines were victories in themselves. The general observed from a distance, amazed at how far the girls had come. He realized that the strict rules and structured routines he had relied upon were never enough to heal emotional wounds. What the twins needed was empathy, patience, and genuine care, and the veteran had provided all three. The general's respect for the man grew with every passing day. The twins began to initiate more interactions. They asked questions, told stories, and even invited the veteran to participate in their games and projects. Their confidence was evident not just in their words, but in their posture, their expressions, and the way they approached new experiences. The veteran continued to guide them gently, offering support without pressure, allowing them to take ownership of their own choices and actions. School reports continued to reflect the changes. The twins were not just performing academically, but socially as well. Teachers noticed their willingness to participate, their ability to collaborate, and their growing empathy toward classmates. They were learning to navigate the world outside the home, equipped with the confidence and emotional tools the veteran had helped them develop. One afternoon, the veteran introduced a new activity. He brought in a small animal, a gentle rabbit, and invited the twins to care for it. At first, they were cautious, unsure how to handle responsibility. But with guidance, they learned to feed, groom, and care for the animal, understanding that their actions had consequences and that empathy was required. This experience further strengthened their confidence and nurtured a sense of responsibility and compassion. The twins also began to explore their emotions more deeply. They spoke openly about their mother, expressing sadness, longing, and memories with the veteran. He listened patiently, offering comfort and understanding. Sometimes he shared his own experiences of loss, helping them see that grief was a natural part of life and that it could exist alongside hope, joy, and love. These conversations helped the girls process their emotions and develop resilience. Even small conflicts between the twins were handled differently than before. They learned to communicate, compromise, and support each other. The veteran guided them gently, modeling patience and empathy, and allowing them to resolve disagreements in constructive ways. Over time, the sisters' bond grew stronger, not just out of necessity, but out of understanding, love, and shared experience. The general began to recognize that the veteran's influence extended beyond the twins. The household staff, once skeptical, had been inspired by his patience and methods. They learned to approach the girls with understanding, to celebrate small victories, and to offer consistent care without frustration or judgment. The atmosphere in the home had shifted completely. What had once been tension and fear was now cooperation and warmth. One evening, the twins approached the veteran with an idea. They wanted to organize a small celebration for their father, something to show gratitude for his support and love. They worked together, planning decorations, preparing a simple meal, and crafting small gifts. The veteran guided them when needed, but allowed them to take the lead. When the general entered the room, he was greeted with laughter, smiles, and a warmth that had not been present in years. The father-daughter bond was evident, but so was the unique and transformative role of the veteran. As the celebration continued, the general realized something profound. The veteran had not only reached the twins' hearts, but had reshaped the entire household. Discipline, authority, and structure had their place, but they were never enough to heal grief or build trust. What the twins needed was presence, empathy, and patience, and the veteran had provided exactly that. The veteran's own life had changed as well. Through his work with the twins, he had found purpose, connection, and fulfillment. He had faced his own hardships and loss, and in guiding the twins, he had discovered the strength of empathy and understanding. His life had intertwined with theirs, forming a family that was bonded not by blood, but by trust, care, and shared experience. In the following months, the twins continued to thrive. They spoke openly, laughed freely, and engaged with the world around them. They excelled in school, participated in activities, and formed friendships. At home, they contributed to chores, cared for each other, and approached new experiences with confidence. The veteran remained their guide, mentor, and friend, offering consistent support and understanding without ever imposing authority. The general often reflected on the transformation. He had learned a lesson in humility, understanding that power and rank could not replace empathy and patience. He witnessed the profound impact that one individual could have when they approached children with genuine care and understanding. The twins' growth was a testament to the power of presence, patience, and love. The final test of trust came unexpectedly. The twins faced a challenge at school that required courage and confidence. They were nervous, hesitant, and uncertain. The veteran supported them, guiding them gently, reminding them of their strengths, and allowing them to make choices independently. The twins succeeded, demonstrating resilience, confidence, and the emotional growth they had achieved. It was a moment of triumph, not just for the twins, but for the household and for the veteran himself. In the quiet moments that followed, the twins would often sit with the veteran, sharing thoughts, stories, and laughter. They no longer feared expression, and they embraced the warmth and security of their home. The general, observing these moments, felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had entrusted his daughters to someone who had transformed their lives, someone who had achieved the impossible where 12 others had failed. The house, once silent and tense, had become a place of life, warmth, and love. The twins had grown into confident, expressive, and resilient children. The veteran had not only guided them through grief and silence, but had taught them the value of empathy, patience, and understanding. The general had learned that true strength was gentle, and that the power of care could achieve what authority never could not. As the story came to a close, the household had been transformed entirely. The twins were thriving, the veteran had found purpose and connection, and the general had discovered a profound lesson in humility and understanding. Together, they had created a family built on trust, patience, and love. The journey that began with silence, fear, and uncertainty had ended in laughter, growth, and hope, proving that even the most impossible challenges could be overcome with empathy, presence, and unwavering care.